Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, I'm Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. In February 2016, I took a rather interesting vow. I vowed to stop grumbling. Now let's get one thing straight. We all grumble. Some do more than others, but I'm one of those people who are easily disappointed, and so I'm relatively more prone to grumbling. Why I decided to stop grumbling, I'm not sure, but I know that it led me down an interesting path. Instead of spending all my time trying to figure out what was wrong with the situation, it often led me to analyze why I was in that situation in the first place. And that takes me right into what I learned in 2016. I learned that goals are not enough, that pacing matters. I've always been clued into the fact that time management is not as powerful as energy management. And 2016 was when I had some solid, practical applications for this concept of time versus energy. I also realized that closed doors open, if you're willing to persist. However, at the top of my list of my learning was the importance of the diversion. This message really resonated stronger with me than anything else. Let's start out with the diversion and why that diversion mattered so much. In July 2016, we decided to go to Goa, India. India, as amazing as it is in terms of beauty, food, and culture, is not quite a vacation for me. My parents live in Goa, which by itself used to be calm and peaceful, but now it seems like any other part of India. It's noisy and chaotic, which makes the visit slightly worse. What makes the visit slightly worse is the location of my parents' house. My parents live in a tiny 2-bedroom cottage, but it's located at a junction. If you visited India, you know that horns on vehicles are meant to be used wherever possible. Cars, buses, motorcycles, they all honk while on the move, but almost always honk when at a junction, just to warn others of their approach. You see the problem, don't you? My parents, they're used to the honking in the traffic, but the sounds of India drive me crazy. To make sure we were suitably removed from that chaos, we decided to rent our own cottage, and it was 7 miles away from my parents' place. Supposedly, this place was a lot quieter. You know how you're not supposed to trust things you see on the internet, right? Well, we didn't. I got a cousin of mine to check out the place and to get back to me. It's by a narrow road, she said, and not particularly noisy. There's a bit of traffic, but it's not too bad. Going by this assessment, we decided to rent the cottage. When we got to Goa, the cottage was amazing. It had a superb lounge area, really good art on the wall, decent food nearby, and this place had 2 large bedrooms. It was perfect in every way, except the sound of the traffic. Apparently the road was narrow and seemingly devoid of traffic, but it also happened to be the route to an industrial estate. This meant that when the traffic rolled, it was the sound of enormous trucks rolling by. Normally, this would be enough reason to grumble. We'd done all our due diligence, and there we were in a situation not a lot better than before. Yet this location proved to be the starting point of a completely different type of vacation. Normally on vacations we eat, drink, and rest a lot. Instead, we ended up at an Ayurvedic center, quite by chance, And then we were instructed to stay on a diet with no alcohol, and we could only sleep at night. And at night, we were often woken up by the barking of stray dogs. So we'd rise next day for the Ayurvedic treatment, and we'd be very tired. In short, what seemed to be a vacation was not a vacation at all. We got back to Auckland more tired than when we left, and we could barely function for the first 2 weeks after we got back. Yet, this was my biggest learning, the role of the diversion. We weren't supposed to end up in this cottage, we weren't supposed to be at that Ayurveda center, we were supposed to eat and drink and make merry. Yet, it was the most life-changing vacation we've ever had. Both Renuka and I found that the diversion helped us tremendously with our health. Once we were done, my blood pressure, which was soaring, was almost back to normal, and my cholesterol levels were the best they'd been in the past 7 years. Our food changed. If you look at the photos on Facebook, and I post food photos almost every day, you'll notice a marked difference in the food we ate from July onwards. We didn't consciously move towards vegetarian food, but meat is a rarity these days. I'm the biggest fan of bread, and yet I've been making dosas, which is a fermented version of rice and dal. And ever since we got back, we've been eating dosas for breakfast. All of this has made a massive impact. And the story of our trip to India is just an example of how 2016 has helped me focus on the diversion. Before 2016, I'd be more driven to getting to the goal. Anything that took me away from the goal was a needless irritation. I'd do almost anything to get back on track and to avoid the diversion. The sight of a diversion sign would get me needlessly upset. Yet at the end of 2016, I tend to enjoy the diversion. If things are not going my way, I tend to find the importance of that diversion. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe in destiny. I used to believe in it, and it's fine if you believe in it, but I don't. I don't believe that things happen for a reason. I believe that things happen, and we put a reason to it. This diversion angle isn't about life unfolding to a plan. Instead, I see it more as a sense of calm as things go crazy. That instead of grumbling and getting upset, it's about enjoying the diversions. I know this to be true because not all diversions end with lower cholesterol and happy stories. Some diversions are just a royal pain. But when you accept the diversion for what it is, you're a bit like a walking Buddha. You're accepting things for what they are. I'm still very goal-oriented. I still believe in the concept of getting things done, yet I'm less paranoid about the diversion. To me, that was the biggest learning of 2016. I think I didn't do as well as I expected with the grumbling goal. I could have done better. I've grumbled less than I usually do, but more than I would have liked. What I do know is that diversions don't faze me as much as they used to. To quote a Jack Johnson song, "Swim like a jellyfish, rhythm is nothing. You go with the flow, you don't stop." That jellyfish lesson, the lesson about diversions and the learning from the diversion, that was my first lesson. The second one was even more ironic. You know that at Psychotactics we talk about the 3-month vacation, right? Well, in 2016 we didn't take our 3-month vacation as we should have. And it really impacted our world and our work. In the second section, let's find out why. The article writing course at Psychotactics is called the toughest writing course in the world. When you make a statement like that, most people assume that the course is tough for the attendee, the person doing the course. Admittedly, it's very tough for the student because you have to get from a point of struggle, from struggling to write an article every day, from taking hours to write an article every day, to being able to write a very good article in fewer than 90 minutes. Yet for me, it's an even bigger struggle. A course with just 25 participants generates between 10,000 to 15,000 posts in just 3 months. All of these comments, assignments, questions, they all have to be answered. Plus, there's no such thing as rolling out last year's course. Between 10 to 20% of the course changes every year, and it has done so since it first ran in 2006. However, this year I decided to do something that would put even more pressure on me. I decided to create version 2 of the article writing course. Now, it's not like the earlier version was a dud, but like everything in life, a course needs an upgrade. Under perfect circumstances, the notes would be rewritten well in advance. However, when doing a psychotactics course, I like to gauge the reactions of the clients. Where do they proceed quickly? Where do they get stuck? And so, at least for this course, I decided to write new assignments. I decided to write new notes, and this is while the course is in progress. No matter how good you are at writing or creating courses, it's incredibly hard work. Which is why we have the 3-month vacation in place. We work for 12 weeks, then we take a month off. Then another 12 weeks, and then another month off. In 2016, we didn't stick to our well-oiled routine. The 12-week on, 4 weeks off has been the primary reason why we have been able to achieve our goals. It allows us to work and then rest and then come back with a full charge. The vacation in India, while great for our health and diet, left us more tired than ever before. And then we did a half-baked vacation in Australia in October. Instead of taking the entire month off, we tried a 2-week break, and there was a work trip at the end of that journey. Technically, a 2-week trip is as good as a month, but having work at the tail end means that I never quite relax as much as I should. And this was my second learning, that though there are diversions, it's important as far as possible to stick to a solid pacing. The routine is what's most efficient. It's why it's called a routine. When we stray away from this pace of work in downtime, what we are straying away from is what happens to be the most efficient thing for us. So by the end of the year, I was quite drained. I've managed to do as much as the previous years, probably even more. Yet, it's important not to be so tired as you head into a break. And I could feel myself being dragged to work at 5 a.m. instead of 4. I could feel the tiredness in my bones simply because we hadn't stuck to the pacing. Taking weekends off was a great move. It helped me to get back to Mondays with a bounce in my step. But the vacations mattered. What also mattered was how we structured the vacations. That diversion concept, it's easy to spot, but how does this pacing thing apply to you? We often work through the year expecting that work itself will get us to where we want to be. Yet it's been proven time and time again that downtime is where the brain really works. A tired brain simply does not function to its highest capacity. A brain is like a modern jetliner. It needs to fly, but then it needs to get down onto the tarmac to refuel before it gets back in the air. A jetliner's greatest value is not when it's on the tarmac, but when it's in the air. Yet, without the downtime and without the maintenance, that plane will crash to the ground. It is that routine that keeps the plane in high performance mode at all times. It's one thing to have goals. It's one thing to say that it's important to have vacations and weekends, and yet it's quite another thing to structure that downtime. In 2016, we failed to structure all of our downtime the way we normally do. And as we took that time off from December to Jan, we relaxed. Even so, the breaks should be better planned, they should be better executed. Goals are one thing, but pacing is quite another. That was lesson number 2, and with a little planning and some diversions, we'll have more pacing in 2017, so that when we go to the break, we're still quite relaxed. We're not so tired. All of this talk about pacing is really a precursor for energy management, isn't it? I've always suspected that there's something fundamentally wrong with time management. And this year, the idea came home to roost. Energy management is far superior to time management. This was my third lesson for the year. You wouldn't think chefs would solve a productivity problem, would you? And that's just what stuck with me when I was watching a Netflix episode of Chef's Table. What struck me was the difference between my method of cooking and theirs. I may get the ingredients in advance, but usually I'm looking at the recipe just before I cook. Then I'll start to assemble all the spices, the veggies, and then I'll start the cooking process. While the cooking is in progress, a whole bunch of utensils get dirty, they have to be washed, and then I'll finish the cooking and it's time for the plating. The chefs don't operate like me. The ingredients are bought in advance. They're chopped in advance. They're located right where they should be when the chef is ready to cook. What struck me is that a professional cooking system has a remarkable similarity to the way I write. I will write topics on one day, I will outline on the second day, I will expand on the third, I will edit on the fourth, and in the case of the podcast, I'll record on the fifth, and all of this seems like a long process. But the actual writing doesn't take any more time. When I split it into all those tiny bits spread over 5 or 6 days, it's the same time as if I try to do it in one day. But if I try to do it all at once, even a single break in the chain drains my energy. And then I will waste twice or thrice the time. I know you've heard me write and talk about this energy issue before, but to me it was very crucial, especially when teaching difficult courses like the article writing course. In the past, I often emphasized that you had to turn out dozens of articles, but that didn't make the students better. What it made them was more tired, and by the end of the course, they weren't able to write within 90 minutes. Some took 3 hours, but some took even longer. And if you slog so hard, it's easy to get exhausted. It's easy to have dropouts. Now, our dropout rate is often restricted to just 1 or 2 participants, but even so, I am responsible for their success. If I'm the teacher, I cannot afford to have dropouts simply because they're getting exhausted. Which is why energy became such a big issue for me in 2016. I started to design my life around energy, not around time. Any task was almost always split up into parts, like the chef sequence. Incredibly enough, the first day of the sequence involved nothing but planning. Planning all the things I had to do was just day one. And in the course, that's what clients spent their first day doing as well. They planned what they were going to write about. This simple shift in energy versus time management, it makes a world of a difference for both me as a teacher, as a writer, as a trainer, as well as for the person learning. Instead of having this task of having to do everything at one go, the clients were able to learn better. I, in turn, was able to achieve more and to do so consistently. Overall, 2016 was draining. I struggled when I returned from India. I didn't have quite the break that I expected in October in Australia, and technically, I should have achieved a lot less. Yet, 2016 was a remarkable year. I didn't get too much reading done. I could have got more reading done, but I was able to get through quite a tough year to a high degree of satisfaction. Of course, I'll never be satisfied. I still want to do twice as much or thrice as much. And maybe that's what 2017 is about, to do less. I'm fascinated with a lot of things. I'm fascinated with cooking, drawing, painting, software, dancing, teaching. That list goes on and on and on. And to maintain a high proficiency, we need to be like chefs. We both need to do the prep work well in advance. Time management is still interesting to me, but it's energy management that really got my attention. Which takes us to the final point, which is dealing with seemingly closed doors. Every day I pick up my niece Marcia from school, and every day we avoid the mad rush of schoolgirls as they exit from the gate on the far side. We have no problem with this gate on most days until we ran into a certain Friday. We could see the problem unfolding from a distance. First, there was a motorcyclist trying to get the gate to open. Then a woman stepped out from her car and ran into a similar problem. So this gate was closed. It seemed like it was locked. By the time we got to the gate, it seemed like no one was going to open it. If that was the case, we'd have to retrace our steps and go back almost 150 meters to another exit. It was a boiling hot day, and I'm no fan of the sun. So I decided to fiddle with the gate. As it turned out, it wasn't locked after all. There was a lock on the gate, giving everyone the impression that it was locked, but the gate was merely jammed. A bit of a tug in the right direction, and it rolled just as it should. It was wide open. To me, this was part of my learning for 2016, but mainly in my personal life. For much of 2016, Renuka was having a lot of trouble with her allergies and partly with her breathing at night. On the trip to India, she went through the Ayurvedic treatment, and that helped her to reduce the nodules that were blocking her breathing. We thought the problem of breathing would improve, and it did, but she still had these allergies. Now, if we go back to 2008 or 2009, she'd gone to an allergy clinic. Without any medicine or fuss, they managed to get rid of the allergy in 24 hours. Instead of sneezing endlessly or using nose sprays or taking over-the-counter medication, she went from achoo to being a normal person. Before she got to the allergy clinic, her nose would get all clogged, her sinuses would flare, her eyes would get all red. She watched dozens of videos on YouTube and tried to self-medicate. The sinus issue and the allergy would back down for a short while, and then she'd be back again to sneezing. So what's the point of this story? We thought that gate was closed. The allergy gate was closed. She had been to the allergy clinic several years ago. She was free of the allergies, and now that they were back, what was the point of returning to the allergy clinic? So instead of treating those gates as being locked, we decided to take a chance. We decided to go back to the allergy clinic, and within 24 hours, her allergies were gone. They've stayed gone for the last few months. And what I'm trying to say here is pretty simple. Through 2016, I ran into friends I thought I'd lost forever. I just had to dig further and deeper to find them. Most of the things I thought were doomed were just stuck on pause. They seemed like they had a lock on them, but there was no lock. And when I worked my way through them, sometimes months later, those gates seemed to open. Those gates that I thought were permanently locked. I really wondered if I should add this fourth point of never giving up in this piece. It seems so very trite, so mundane. Yet the story of Renuka's allergies plus being able to find these friends was a matter of pure chance after giving up. It's not like I hadn't tried before. I tried before, but then after all of that persistence, it seemed pointless, so we gave up. So what this message is all about is to try again, a lot later. That gate at Marcia School seemed locked to everyone, and yet it needed nudging. Who knows, maybe the motorcyclist and the driver of the car loosened it just enough so that I could yank it free. It's a lesson that you have to keep going long after everyone else and possibly even you have given up. And that was my 2016 in a nutshell. So what did we cover? We covered 4 things. The first thing was the importance of the diversion. To me, the diversion was the most important lesson of all. It allows me to stay calm in a very stressed situation. It allows me to enjoy the journey for what it is, not necessarily knowing when we'll get back on the main road. The diversion is what we are in right now. And it's kind of, be happy where you are. It sounds pretty boring, but for me, it's been very important. The second thing I learned was that goals are not enough. That pacing really matters, that you can't take 3 months off together, you can't put too much space between them. You have to have this pacing of work and rest and work and rest, and that really matters to your productivity, to your ability to create good, outstanding stuff, not just stuff that you're putting out there. The third thing, which I've talked about before, is time management versus energy management. And that when you learn to manage your energy, and I'll cover more about this in future podcasts, that changes everything. So energy management is very cool. And finally, closed doors. Renuka's allergy, we had gone the first time several years ago, then she was fine, then we went back again when she wasn't fine, and nothing happened. And so we were reluctant to go a third time, but when we went the third time, it got fixed. And this has been true for many other situations in 2016, where the doors seemed closed. I knocked again after a little while. Hey, someone opened the door. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. It's February 2017. Last night, I had my zero gravity dream again. This is a recurring dream where I simply spread my hands wide, my arms wide, and I'm able to beat gravity. Like an astronaut that tumbles and flies in zero gravity, I'm usually in the room floating to the ceiling. Occasionally, I'll go outside, probably even show off a bit by doing double or triple flips. No one in the room seems to be surprised by my ability, but even in my dream, I'm trying to prove that it's not a dream. Except, I didn't have this dream for all of 2016. Was 2016 a bit rough? Monetarily, it was like all the other years. We made thrice as much as we need, and that's more than enough. Our subscriber rate went through the roof, climbing 200% and then 500% or more. And we didn't do anything dramatic. We didn't do any advertising or joint ventures or anything different than what we've been doing for the past 17 years. Even so, I felt a bit unsettled by 2016. And now after a whole month of rest, I'm ready to take on 2017, doing better stuff, not just more stuff. And I have my cue. I have my dream where I'm flying, I'm in zero gravity, I'm on the ceiling again. You can catch me if you can. What's happening in Psychotactics land? In a couple of weeks, we're headed to Queenstown. We're doing the landing page workshop. That's going to be very interesting, and probably later in this year, we'll do a webinar series on it. We'll have a product on how to write your sales page, your landing page, but not like the usual landing page. This is a bottom-up landing page. I covered a bit of it in a podcast. Even so, this is going to cover a lot more stuff. It's going to cover how you construct that entire landing page. Most landing pages, if properly done, can take a seasoned copywriter over a week. This course, this workshop is designed to show you how you can do it in like 3 days. So that's the first thing that's happening. The second thing that's happening is the article writing course. Now, this is the home study of the article writing course. We only sell 25 or 30 copies. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's 30 or 35. But we only sell a very limited number of copies every time we release the home study. No one gets it. They think, why can't you sell 100? Why can't you sell 200? Well, we're happy with selling 30 or 35 or 20, 25 or 30, whatever it is. We'll know more about that, but you have to be on the list. You have to be on the Psychotactics list for that notification, or better still, go to the article writing page. There's a waiting list there. Sign up for that. Later in the year, we'll have the article writing course, which is the course that is monitored by me, which brings up all those thousands of posts and back and forth, which is very intense. So for 12 weeks, you really are slogging it out, and I'm slogging it out with you. A lot of people decide that they're going to buy the home study so that they kind of get prepared before they get to the article writing course. So it's your choice. You can do the home study now, and then later on you can do the course, or you can just wait for the course. It's totally up to you. And finally, there's 5000 BC. You know that place where all the introverts hang out, where we actually work through stuff. Not more information, but how do you take the information that you have and then implement it? And then what if you make mistakes? And then how do you fix those mistakes and there's nobody around? Well, not in 5000 BC. The uniqueness of 5000 BC is that it's about being kind, being helpful, and I'm around almost all the time, and so are all the other members who have done courses, who have read our books. So you're not just getting a random group of people, but people that really are kind and caring. And that is the most important thing. If someone is irritating, someone is obnoxious, someone is pushing their stuff, they get thrown out. So join us in 5000 BC. And this is me, Sean D'Souza, saying hello to 2017. And probably will do a lot less and be happier. Bye for now.